You just purchased the Ohio Ordnance HCAR, the heavy counter assault rifle, the only 30-round semi-automatic 30-06 rifle available on the market today. And now you have to learn how to take care and maintain of your rifle. So today we're going to go through the disassembly and maintenance procedures so that you can keep this guy running for a long, long time. So this first step we're going to do is remove any source of ammunition and then check our chamber. The HCAR will lock open without the magazine inserted or with an empty magazine, which you can then visually inspect your chamber to make sure that you are safe. If you were doing the disassembly, we would leave the gun in the locked open position and start by releasing our first of our 3 disassembly pins. I'm going to use a dummy round. You can use a punch or a cartridge if you're on the range and you have nothing else. But I'm just going to insert it here in the bottom of the pin. Give it a little tap. Pull it till it clicks. It is a captive pin. It's not going to come out of the gun. And then I'm just going to lift straight off the front. And that is going to remove my handguard and gas tube assembly. I can set that to the side, set the rifle down, and do all the rest of my disassembly from here. The next thing I'm going to do is hit the bolt release and gently guide the piston and slide forward because I don't want to accidentally knock the piston against my gas block. From there, I'm going to take my dummy cartridge or punch again, and I'm going to push on the other 2 disassembly pins. Pull them till they click. They are captive. And I can then lift the trigger group out of the receiver and set that aside. You want to take note that you want the hammer in the cock position, which it will be if you have the bolt locked to the rear. I like to put the weapon on safe as soon as I start this procedure so I know I don't accidentally have the hammer forward. From here, we're going to remove our recoil spring. What we have to do is push in on the base, turn about 90 degrees, and pull it out of the rear. If I just do that, the spring is going to go all willy-nilly, so I like to put my hand over the slide to maintain positive control, push on it with the pad of my thumb, and turn, and gently release that spring. Once you've got the recoil spring out of the weapon, you can then take the slide, which will now move freely, and move it back just a little bit. You'll be able to notice there is a hole in the side of the receiver that when you push the slide back, you'll see the head of this pin. You'll line it up with there. Take your charging handle. It also has a hole in it. You're going to align all of those together and gently push on that pin, which will start it coming out the far side of your receiver. Open your stock, take the charging handle off, and then you can push that pin all the way through the receiver. That pin is going to link your slide and your bolt group together. Move the slide rearward, and inside the slide is a small piece called the cocking piece, which you can usually catch on your finger and pull out the top. The slide will then be free to move forward out of the receiver. From there, we'll have to get our bolt out. It's going to lift out of the receiver. We have to pull this, the bolt guide, out of the way. If you're on the range, you can use the rim of a cartridge case. If you're at home, a screwdriver or other flat surface will help. You're just going to put that in this notch here, pull outward. While doing so, grab the tail of your bolt and pull it upwards. You'll lift your bolt group straight out of your receiver. You have a couple items of note here. This is your extractor. It is on a spring, so you want to make sure that you have spring tension there. Your firing pin moves freely, and the secondary firing pin also is spring loaded, and this roll pin hasn't walked out. That is the full disassembly. From there, you can clean your receiver group. It is empty in here. Taking note of the locking surface, which is in this area inside the receiver. You also have a hydraulic buffer in the HCAR, so you want to take note not to get too much solvents or other cleaning chemicals back in there because that is an oil buffer. So if you are going to use foaming bore cleaner or something, make sure that you keep it muzzle downward. Now you are ready for reassembly. When you're done cleaning your HCAR, when you go back to lubricate and oil it, the best way I found is to make sure that the outside edges of your slide are oiled, because that oil will transfer into the receiver, and also make sure that your spring and guide are well oiled. That's going to stack up inside of the piston shank there. A little bit of oil on the outside of the bolt helps, but beyond that, you don't need to do much to it. I would just make sure that you keep your spring and guide well lubricated. It helps with the reliability of the weapon. From there, we'll go into reassembly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our bolt. The note is that this cocking piece and bolt, this pin is not captive. It doesn't have a retainer. It is just in there, so as the gun gets older and wears, it may fall on its own, but it just pops right back into place. We're going to take the bolt face down, pushing out on that bolt guide. The top of the bolt guide is tapered, and with a little bit of force, it will pop past it. It's only going the other way that we have to pull it outward from the receiver. Pushing down on that bolt, you can get it to snap into place, and then you just gently slide it forward. It will drop into the locking surface. From there, I can grab the slide and put it in from the front of the receiver. I find it easy to push it all the way rearward, and then I get my cocking piece. I like to place it on my finger, and then this will ride in the slot in the back of the slide. I'll just drop it in and catch that, push it rearward. I'll then grab the piston shank, slide it forward until it makes contact with my bolt group. Reinstall my charging handle. And then I have to take that pin and put it back through everything else. So I'm going to turn my receiver so I can look at it, move the slide back until I see the holes line up, start my pin. It doesn't matter which way it goes. I may have to slightly adjust the cocking piece inside the slide, and then I'm going to have to lift up on the secondary firing pin assembly on the bolt until I line all those holes up, and then push that pin all the way through. I now have everything linked back together, so it'll move all as one group. The next thing will be reinstalling your recoil spring and guide. We're going to put that in through the magwell area, going underneath the front of the receiver, going forward, and it's going to stack up inside that piston shank, so I find it easiest to push it forward, and then I just roll it with my fingers until it lines up. Keep going forward. Once the head of the spring guide passes over this bridge in the receiver, that's how you know you've gone far enough. If it goes past it, fine, but if it's sitting out here, you probably have a protrusion or blockage inside of that, some dirt or crud. Once I do that, you want to control the spring and push forward. I like to use my fingers to hold the spring against the sidewall of the slide, pushing forward with my thumb, and then guiding the tip of the guide rod into that piston shank. Once I've got it all the way forward, I'm going to turn the base of the recoil spring slightly. If I have to stop, take a breather, and keep going, I will. And then I have to return that to its original position, and you'll feel it kind of set into place. And there it is. From there, I'm going to lift up the receiver, set it on the butt, pull the slide back slightly, get my handguard and gas tube assembly, sliding the handguard over the muzzle, pass the gas tube onto the piston, making sure that the gas block catches the front of that gas tube, and then I'm going to push that front takedown pin closed. I can let go of my slide. I'm going to lay the rifle back down, take my trigger group, ensuring that my hammer is in the rearward position, cocked position. Drop that back in to the receiver body and push the pins back shut. And I have reassembled my HCAR. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my bolt does lock back. That's a good test to know that you put everything back in the right place. Once you have your HCAR back together, you can pull the bolt to the rear, ensuring that it locks. Return the charging handle forward. I can then make sure that my bolt release functions correctly. I can then also check weapons on safe, safe is safe, fire is fire. Pulling the bolt back slightly, not enough to lock it, but just slightly. I can also check my reset and do a full functions check of the system. If I have an empty magazine, I can also check my empty magazine. Also locks the bolt to the rear to make sure that you have full function. We have all of the parts here. The other thing to note is that the gas regulator does have 3 positions, and make sure that you have a positive click in all 3 positions. The gun should run just fine on the medium setting for most end user use. An important feature to note on the HCAR is that the last round hold open, unlike your AR-15 or your handgun, which is always wanting to be off, our bolt hold open always wants to be on, and it's the presence of ammunition that turns it off. The way that works is this little actuator here on the front of your trigger housing will drop forward into a recess in the HCAR magazine, like so. When that happens, this goes up and captures the slide and locks the bolt to the rear. When there's ammunition present in the magazine, or when the follower is in front of it, it prevents that from going forward and moving that up to the locking position. The BAR magazines do not have that cutout, but can still be used in the HCAR. It will just not lock open on empty. A condition of this feature is that if I have ammunition that has a very short overall length, there will be enough room in the magazine for the rounds to move forward against the front edge of the magazine and leave enough void space in the back for that actuator to fall into place and lock the gun open. It is just a nature of this mechanism. As long as you use ammunition that has an equivalent overall length to M2 ball, the gun will not lock open when there's ammunition present. But if you're using something like a lightweight hunting round, say the Remington Core Locked 125 grains, the gun will probably lock open with ammunition in the magazine. You can alleviate that by using the BAR style magazine, and the gun will run reliably with any overall length of ammunition. You've now completed the reassembly and maintenance on your HCAR. If you have any other questions, you can go to ohioordnanceworks.com, or you can email us at sales@oowinc.com.